Hey Calvary kids! Well, welcome back to Storytime, where we are moving through the Bible. We've been talking about David, who defeated a giant with a, slingshot. And remember, David showed mercy to King Saul. And then David had a baby boy named Solomon. Solomon grew up and became king of Israel after David died. God spoke to Solomon and offered him the fulfillment of one wish. Does anyone remember what Saul asked God for? Wisdom, which is what inspired the 3 books of the Bible that we talked about last week: Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Songs. This week, we are headed back into 1 Kings. Let's find out what Solomon is up to now. Will you help me tell the story? Find a spacious spot on the ground where you can see the screen but move around easily. And go! I'm looking for a handy tool to help me get into the Bible story. Do you see it? Aha! There it is. Grab yours and adjust. Who is it? Oh, today it isn't a who, it's a what? It's the Ark of the Covenant again. I wonder what's happening this time. Hang on tight. We stand up and we look around. We see Solomon overseeing thousands of workers building a temple. The workers get down on the ground and grab a cedar wood plank. Put your feet out behind you. They pick it up and then lift the plank up. Let's do it again. They grab the plank, they pick it up, and then they lift it up. The foundation has been laid and the walls are up. We walk around a few steps beside Solomon, who is inspecting the work. Step, 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 and stop. Suddenly, he stops walking because he hears God's voice.
If you obey my commands, I will keep the promise I made to David. I will live among the Israelites, and I will not abandon my people.
What a great promise. It takes 7 years to build the temple, without 7 fingers. We touch our toes and hop 7 times, once for each year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We see the Ark of the Covenant is being moved from Mount Zion to the temple. Do you remember how we pretended to be the Ark of the Covenant? We get down on our bellies and grab our feet behind us. Then, as the priests lift up the Ark and carry it into Jerusalem, we lift up. The Ark gets carried all the way into the new temple and put down in the most holy place inside the temple. We come onto our knees and we swoop our arms up as we come up to stand, and God's glory fills the temple. We head out of the temple and we become a palm tree outside so that we can hear Solomon's prayer and speech. We place 1 foot on our ankle, and then we lift our limbs or palm branches up and sway in the wind. Solomon says, "Even heaven, the highest heaven, cannot contain you, God, much less this temple I have built. There was no one God like you." Solomon knew that Israel would sin and make God angry again, so he asked for forgiveness and asked God to hear their prayers. Switch your feet. Solomon encouraged the people to love God and obey him with your whole heart. We see people bringing big offerings to God. It's time for us to sit down and head out of this Bible story. We close our eyes. Thanks for coming with me today. We saw Solomon arrange the first temple to be built, and the Ark of the Covenant get a more permanent home. The temple served as a place where God's people could come to worship him and make sacrifices. Because Jesus came and was the ultimate sacrifice, he made a way for us nowadays to come to God anywhere at any time. We can always look to God for forgiveness and for help. Our memory verse for this unit is, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God." That's James 1, verse 5a. Just like Solomon asked God for wisdom and was rewarded for this, we can always ask God for wisdom when we feel uncertain. Thanks for joining me today. See you next week.